Hello everyone, and welcome to another one of our presentations. Today we're going to work on knowledge transfer once again on the financial services industry. And we're going to talk about a 3-bucket retirement model. Something I really like in my practice is a way to visualize retirement planning before you get to systems or before you get into the kind of heavier reporting. So this is something I really would push people to consider as they're looking at their own retirement situations. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to understand a basic retirement plan. What are you trying to do? We're going to do some analysis on the 3-bucket system. We're going to talk about common issues I run into, and then how we handle this in our practice. As general, the information in this presentation is going to be general in nature. Everyone's situation is slightly different. And so while I try and be as specific as possible, just recognize it may not fit your own personal situation. My name is John Erickson. I have over 17 years in the financial services industry. And once again, I really enjoy making these videos and just spreading the concepts of financial planning. So let's talk about some basic retirement goals. What should you be trying to do? And this is in context of a 3-bucket model. So, I have a basic premise for retirees. I think this is generally correct, that you are going to be happier in retirement if you can ignore the market somehow. Okay. And that's really hard. During your working years, you're oftentimes earning a paycheck, and you might definitely pay attention to your investments, especially as you get closer to retirement. But when things crash, when things don't go quite as planned, you just keep working. But what I find retirees is not only do they have greater risk because they can't necessarily keep working, they also have greater stress because they're paying greater attention to their investments. And so if we can find some way to replicate what people are doing during their working years, I think we actually have a really good basis to start retirement planning. Okay. And really the question is what model is best for you? I actually think there's a lot of great retirement models. Sometimes I get in trouble by not advocating for one model or over another and being too wishy-washy, because I think there's more than one way to do this. Another thing that you need to always recognize is that when we talk about retirement planning, what's your inflation plan? That's my most important thing you need to worry about, especially over the long term. You need to generate income in retirement. You no longer have a paycheck. How are you going to do that? We have to think about your life expectancy. The party does end at some point for people. And then this concept of diversification. And I'm here in Washington State, so diversification is actually a harder concept than you might think about. And I'll explain why. So I try and get people to think about what's called a 3-bucket approach. And this is all about benchmarking certain goals to certain assets. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to have people say, I need a certain amount of income in retirement. And then I try and benchmark investments as either income producing, growth, or protection. And I'm always trying to say, well, this investment is designed to do this. And then I can think of it in context of other options. Okay. And when we talk about all these different buckets, why do I try and build this into income, growth, or protection for people? We need to talk about, some of the basic problems of this, building the buckets. So remember, inflation's critical to manage here. When you build all these buckets, when you're trying to put the money together like this, can you hit at least 5% across everything? And then are you getting enough money out of this, right? Are you actually retiring happy? And did you actually diversify, right? This is a diversification play. So when we talk about this and we understand building the buckets, I think the income bucket is the most critical. And I think it's the one that's hardest to understand. And I want to use this number 5%. You're going to see I use 5% a lot. It's like a baseline. This is a number you should hit in retirement. But when you're benchmarking income, you want that to be what it's actually paying you, 5%. You put $100,000 in, you should expect this to pay you around $5,000. It's not always guaranteed, but by benchmarking the amount of income you're getting, and that's not the same as total return, this is income, you can also kind of start to compare things like annuities with dividend stock portfolios, with rental properties, with collateralized mortgage obligations. Like anything that produces income, you can kind of start to benchmark it and you can go, well, this is not producing 5%. Maybe this isn't a good income play. Maybe I should be really concentrated from a total return standpoint. And so, when we talk about this concept, almost anything can produce income for you. But if you at least start your benchmarking, it's supposed to produce 5%. I put this amount into the engine and it produces 5% for me. That's a really good starting point for the income bucket. Now, we're talking about the growth bucket. I'm trying to blend someone's retirement and grow their money over the long term. I'm trying to ideally hit at least 7%. That's what I'm trying to model day one. It's not guaranteed, but that's what I'm really trying to model. And I really like people to identify something called a core holding, something that has long-term, predictable, non-guaranteed returns. And it's really hard when we talk about the tech effect, and I'll have that in the next slide. But you can still take money out of this bucket. But the goal of this bucket here is to grow the money and have a plan for when the market goes down. And when we talk about the growth bucket diversification, we have a really big problem, and the screen here right shows it. All these options could be considered growth. All these options could be considered a core holding, and all these options could be considered aggressive. And when we talk about tech, and I'm out here in Washington State in Bellevue, when we talk about Microsoft, one of the world-beating stocks for years. And when I tell people, hey, you may want to sell some of this and diversify, I have a problem. If it doesn't actually crash, if it keeps being Microsoft, what it's been recently, I might be hurting returns in exchange for diversification. And so this is actually a big problem with the growth bucket of, are you willing to diversify? Now, protection bucket. This is I call the sleep at night money, right? This is you can buy, say, a CD as a pure example, earn 5%, and it's guaranteed FDIC insured, right? This is a critical component to protect you from market downturns. It's critical to protect you emotionally in retirement. I will always tell you that in my experience, retirees can be very emotional with their money. And frankly, I'm no different at times. And the big thing we talk about the protection bucket is, can you get at the money when you need it? And this is where I see people mess up, because you can buy something that's fairly well protected. And if the goal is to be able to touch it when the other things aren't working as well, can you get at it? And so this is where I spend a lot of time researching liquidity versus guarantees versus returns. What am I trying to do with this bucket? And there's lots of ways to create a protection bucket. But at least from my standpoint, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to hit a rate of return, and I want to plan to get at the money at any time when the market's down. And what is my problem for doing that? Now, let's talk about some common issues. The common issues I run into. The concept of a 3-bucket system just may not fit you. It's harder to do than an asset allocation model. I think it's better long-term once you get the hang of it, but it's hard to do, right? If you're buying something as a 20-35 model, would be a equivalent strategy that I don't think is as good, but works. This needs updates. You need to kind of follow up in your money or have someone like me do that. It can be hard for people to start moving their money around to do a 3-bucket system. You also have to get a sense of, what do you need in retirement? How much income do you need? A lot of people don't actually know that. Sometimes people need to be told, this is how much you can have, right? A 3-bucket system isn't easy to fit in a free financial planning tools, because it's really just trying to put all your money together and say you can spend X, Y, Z. The other thing with a 3-bucket system is retirement comes in stages. The nice thing about a 3-bucket system is taxes can be controlled more effectively, I think. And then also, I always remind people this, can you hit 5% across your portfolio, or expect to, even if it's not guaranteed? Now, how do I try and tackle this in my practice? And I always try and tell people, you should consider copying what I do, because I think I do a good job with this. I help people build buckets. I am a little agnostic as to what you fill it with. I have my opinions. I can make it happen A to Z, but my job is to build the buckets and not treat this as one size fits all. I want you to collaborate as part of this. A lot of this is based upon goal setting, right? This is more work than just buying a target date fund and retiring. And then I charge fees, right? You got to recognize, if you're going to hire someone to do this, you're going to pay fees that you don't incur if you do this yourself. And then, talking about fees, I always put that on my website so people can see this. And usually for building the buckets, we do flat fee arrangements. For filling the buckets, if it's only portions, you need fill, I do portions of that, and I charge usually advisory fees or commissions. And for those who want to hand it off, we get full arrangements for that. So I hope this was helpful to kind of illuminate a basic 3-bucket system. It's what we use a lot. We love it, but it's not the only way to do things. And we'll talk about more ways to do this in our knowledge transfer sessions to kind of give you a sense of other ways to do retirement planning. Thank you.